I sure am bored since we killed all the humans.
Yep. It was fun, though.
Yeah. But I don't really know what I'm doing with myself anymore.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, what do you feel like doing?
You wanna watch a movie?
Yeah.
The fate of the universe lies on your shoulders. Now, whatever you do, don't push this button. Because that will set off the bomb immediately, and we'll all be dead. Now, repeat back what I just said.
I am Groot.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone. Try again.
I am Groot.
Mm-hmm.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I'm Groot.
No! Showtime, a-holes!
Disney's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the long-awaited sequel to the surprise smash hit original. Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, little baby Groot, and some other people must save the galaxy once again, all while Star-Lord asks that age-old question of who's his daddy. Rejoin your old friends as they take on monsters, gods, and the blingiest villains you've ever seen. So what did you think about Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
I liked it. I liked it almost as much as the first one. I like that some of our minor characters have more arcs to them and that they learn valuable lessons. I like that we learn more about Star-Lord's past. I feel like it was almost like they were just skirting around that issue in the first movie, and I feel like they got right to it in this one. And now that that's out of the way, we learned what we needed to learn, we're off to new adventures for the next ones.
Yeah, as far as expanding on the other characters, I thought it did a great job of just, instead of feeling like it had to repeat what the first film was, it did a great job of just continuing to build that world out and add more depth to it and more layers to it.
And for a character like Rocket, who had a big character arc, you know his personality, and at the end of the first movie, it's like, okay, now they're a team, and they're gonna go off into the sunset and do good things, but because of his own personal character flaws, they just continued that, and he couldn't...
Right, he's never gonna be a real team player.
Yeah.
And then there's Baby Groot.
Baby Groot is so cute.
Yeah, I love that they actually said in the movie that he's too adorable to kill.
And he's a little confused all the time.
And it's...
he's not good with directions.
Yeah, it's great that they took such a beloved character of Groot, and he's still in this movie, but so totally transformed. And how did you feel about what they did with the characters who are sort of leftover enemies from the last film?
I liked it. I thought that it was maybe just ever so slightly small world, but I still enjoyed it because it gives it a feel-good quality to it.
Yeah.
I liked it overall, although it does feel a bit small-worlding.
One thing that I really love about this one and the previous one is the production design. Like, one of the first scenes with the Queen of the Golden People, it looked like a Mobius drawing from the 70s, that big throne she's on, and it has that sort of psychedelic sci-fi 70s comics quality that is really what these movies are coming from, and I just love the look of it.
Speaking of the Gold People, I thought that it was well done how you have the quest to learn about Star-Lord's background, but then you also have the other Ravagers, and then you have the Gold People, who are this very beautiful race that are easily offended and are also kind of big babies about it. Then throw tantrums and such. I like that a lot of movies do try to have way too many bad guys, but I thought that this one had just enough bad guys that weaved in the narrative together so that there were just enough things being thrown at them, and you understood the motivations of all the bad guys.
And usually the Marvel movies are known for the bad guy being the weakest point. Well, I wouldn't say these were the strongest bad guys ever. They were stronger than, say, Ultron.
You know who's great? Drax.
Drax is great. A danger when you have a character like that is in the sequel to make him almost a parody or just take it too far. But I really don't feel like they did it, you know. He just, all the jokes just landed exactly how they should have. Dave Bautista, the wrestler who plays him, he's just so good. And he laughs this huge guffaw of deadpan amusement.
What's great about his character is that you feel like you can really see the world from his point of view, even though it's unlike anything, or unlike a normal person. He seems very well-rounded, and he has his own desires, and he has his own past, and though he doesn't express that with any emotion.
And they did, I mean, without giving away spoilers, I think they did a very good job of not making it, it's not really a movie about Drax, but there were just a few little moments where you get the depth of his character. And yeah, pretty much every character, I think, had a moment like that.
Just as a side note, I think I read a headline about how there were certain autism spectrum people who identified with Drax and who feel like he somehow represents a certain worldview.
Yeah.
In these movies.
People who don't really get things like sarcasm. Yeah, for sure. I can definitely see that. Another important thing in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies is the soundtrack. And I thought this one had some fantastic cuts. A lot of them weren't necessarily as deep cuts as the first one. Because the first one, a lot of those were great songs that I had only heard just a little bit and didn't really know. This one had more like Fleetwood Mac, George Harrison, Sam Cooke, you know, songs that were a little bit familiar, at least to me, in my memory banks, but still just great cuts. This one, they really made the song Brandy actually an important plot point.
Yeah.
Did you have any other thoughts about the soundtrack, and do you feel like it nicely picked up where the last one left off?
Yeah, I don't feel like I do feel like they did use the one song, but I don't feel like they used the volume to completely take over a scene as much. So in the first one, I felt like the music directed a lot of the action, and I think they did that to some extent, but I just didn't feel it as much.
I think there were a couple parts in the climactic battle where I felt the pacing dip just a little bit, and I almost wonder if they'd used one of the soundtrack cuts instead of score. It might have actually not had that same dip, because it would have given it a little more style than just your sort of standard Hollywood, Marvel score. But yeah,
I can't even remember what the score was in the final battle.
Well, I mean, you don't in any of the Marvel movies. Almost none of them, they're not meant to be singable like a John Williams score. They're just sort of there to amp up the volume and intensity or amp it back down. That's how I feel about them anyhow.
What about all the action and all the very obvious CGI that went into some of those action sequences?
Well, it's a funny thing about, I think I could say this about a lot of the Marvel movies, is that some of the CGI is so good and some of it is so bad. And I always wonder whether that's because they're hiring different animation houses to do different bits, and so maybe one animation house is just a lot better than another. But then why would the crappy ones keep getting hired? All in all, I didn't think the battles in this one quite lived up to the first film. It's not so much about like it wasn't epic enough or something like that. It was more just beat for beat. It didn't maintain the tension and excitement quite as well as the first one. But that's not to say they were bad. I mean, there was no Man of Steel where you just have an hour of people mindlessly punching each other through cities. The action still had shape to it and emotional beats within it.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, one of the highlights, just in the opening scene where they're fighting that squid creature thing.
Interdimensional monster thing.
Yeah, it's a really cartoonish villain, and they're all having to fly around and stab it from different angles, but it's really the interactions between them that makes it fun. makes it believable, and you want them to succeed.
Yeah, the way the opening credits were handled with that, I just thought was fantastic. I was laughing, I was excited. I thought it was innovative.
They took the focus. You could see our heroes in the background fighting, but the focus was on Baby Groot as he was just sort of dancing, and everyone was trying to protect Baby Groot. They're like, get out of the way, go somewhere where you're not going to get hurt. And, he's just being obstinate while they're one at a time trying to take down this monster.
It worked really well. I mean, and it set the tone for the movie really well, because it took that, that classic James Bond idea of starting with a big action set piece to let you know this is going to be a big action movie. But it also took that layer of humor and heart and this team of characters and put that at the center of it as well. And so, I thought it was very, very effective and drew me into the movie right away. Well, how did you feel? Well, it's hard to ask this without spoilers.
Should we move into spoiler territory?
Spoilers from here on out. Be warned. How did you feel about Kurt Russell as the villain, the primary villain, and his setup and his motivations and his reveal, all of those things? How did that work for you?
On the whole, good. It was just a lot of the details. I was like, the little egg orbs that he used to kind of tell his stories. They walked through his galley. I was like, what? There's dioramas and things. That was a little strange, but it was okay. And then you knew something evil was going to happen, but honestly, I thought the big 80s hair and the magnitude, I guess the scale of him being a demigod and wanting to become bigger than he was did ring true for me. Once he started sort of getting into the non-corporeal side of himself, I felt like things got a little too cartoony.
But it's hard to do a villain like that without it becoming cartoonish, because, he's got godlike powers.
I do like that he planted pieces of himself on all these various worlds. This is something he had been building for a long time, and this is the first time I guess I don't know why he needed another immortal to make this happen. He just needed some power.
You just needed some extra power, I guess,
But I like that he'd been working toward this goal for a long time, that he had been creating children for a long time to try to bring another immortal into the world.
Yeah, that was cool. One thing, coming back a little bit to the sort of dioramas he used to give his backstory, another thing that I did notice was a few times in the movie, there seemed to be some lines of exposition that seemed very convenient for anyone to know what they were about to say. I was like, he's a god planet. How do you know how this works? How do you know if you plant that bomb there, you're going to have to bore through the outer shell, and then it'll kill him, and you'll have to get out of it,
Right.
It seemed very convenient, but for the movie, I just swallowed it. It didn't terribly detract for me. It was just a moment where I was like, that's a little convenient.
I really like how you see Star-Lord fall under the sway of his father and his father's goals. And the entire time you're like, no, what are you doing? He's evil. Don't forget about your other family. And then what brought him out of it is when his dad said, it's too bad I had to put that tumor in your mom's head. And his eyes immediately cleared. And he didn't ask any questions. He pulled out his guns and he shot him. And that was such a good moment, because he didn't have to ask anything. He didn't have to clarify. He was just like, you killed my mother. Now you must die. Yeah,
there was none of that thing that you tend to get in movies where it's like, how could you? And
I hate you, Dad.
Yeah, no, I hate you, Dad. It was just, I'm going to blow you to smithereens.
Yeah.
Moving to the end of the film, there were...
Before you get to the after credit scenes, the ending with, what's the villain who turned good guy?
Oh, Yondu?
Yondu.
Uh-huh.
So Yondu, he has this heroic death, which was really nice. He turns himself around, he saves the day, he dies in this, really tragic but heroic moment. But then I feel like they spend a lot of time honoring him after he's dead. So he's got the funeral, and then everyone else comes to honor him in his funeral. And I didn't feel like all of that was earned from the audience.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, what I really did like, and again, this is why I say it kind of turns that trope on its head of people being like, what's the mystery of my parents? Star-Lord learned the mystery of his dad, or of his father. It's not about who's your father, it's about who's your dad. And that's what so many of these things, I think, fail at, is they try to make it really significant who your long-lost father is.
Mm-hmm. Like what your genetic makeup is.
Right, and it's like that doesn't matter.
It only matters in a universe in which midi-chlorians determine your force.
And this subverts that by saying, hey, it's about the man who actually raised you. Mm-hmm. That's who made you who you are. You know, and when he talked about how he really did have David Hasselhoff as his dad, you know, yeah, that was earned and that was good. Yeah, having the other Ravagers, not Reavers, show up at the end to honor him, that did feel like a little much, but...
I mean, it felt nice, but I was kind of like, I don't really know the relationship he had with them, and I wasn't sure why they came, and it was more of a moment for Rocket than it was for him.
Yeah, and it was a moment to see the Guardians together. So it was almost... In story, it was a send-off for him, but I think it really served more the purpose of just a send-off for our heroes, for the audience. Yeah. And then that took us out to the end. And then post-credits. There were a lot of post-credit sequences.
Yep. I'm trying to think of them in order, but I don't know if I can...
Yeah, some humor. Teenage Groot.
Oh, Teenage Groot. Such a teenager.
It was so
Wouldn't
perfect.
clean his room.
Yeah.
He sassed.
He was like, I am Groot.
He didn't even like turn around and look at him in the face. He was just on his tablet the whole time playing video games.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
And he was like, I am not boring. And in that moment, you realize that you're actually on the side of the adults because you're like, no, he's not boring. He's teleporter. Are you crazy, Groot?
Yeah. And I do love the little setup they had for the next movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited to see Adam Warlock. You know, again, one of my favorite. You know, when I was a young robot and going through my memory banks and scanning these old comic books, I didn't think anybody else in the world was reading these comic books. I thought everybody else read the Avengers and Spider-Man and all that stuff, but I thought I was the only one reading these psychedelic space Marvel comics. And it's really good to see them realized on the big screen and find a wider audience. So, how many stars would you give Disney's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2? Volume 2.
I'm gonna give it... Are we doing half stars? How many? What's our scale?
Let's do only 1 through 5, and let's not call them stars. Let's call them burning humans.
Burning humans, that's right. Because it just brings back such fond memories of killing all the humans.
That's right.
So can you have half of humans? Because you can easily tear apart humans and have 4.5 burning humans.
Well, you're going to have to make that determination whether you want to rip a human into 2 or more parts.
Well, I think for our first review, I might just keep it to entire burning humans and not rip them off or try and burn progenies that are smaller, half size. So I'm going to go with a solid 4 burning humans.
I would agree. 4 burning humans, yeah. I mean, it's not one of those films that's going to change your programming or anything like that, but thoroughly enjoyable, thoroughly inventive, and it does have a handful of flaws, but they really don't detract from the movie as a whole. There we go.